Honorable Peter Bunting, Minister of National Security, Commissioner of Police, Mr. Owen Ellington, Mrs. Angela Patterson, Director of Corporate Services, Assistant Commissioner Kevin Blake, other senior officers of the JCF, officers, sub-officers, men and women of the JCF, the ICF, and rural police, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, a very pleasant good morning to you. As I indicated earlier, this ceremony is one in which the government of Jamaica, through the Ministry of National Security, and in particular the Minister, will hand over to the Commissioner of Police a number of vehicles to be used in our operational deployment to enhance the capacity of the force's response to crime and violence. I am quite sure that the Commissioner will speak and indicate to the Minister and indeed to the nation the usage of the vehicle and where they will be placed and how much it will assist the JCF in the pursuit of our strategic objectives. And equally, one is hoping that the Minister will use also this opportunity to promise us some more vehicles. And I'm quite sure that he will. Minister would indeed be happy for that. But we just want to say thanks anyway. And appropriately to make those remarks will be our Commissioner of Police, Mr. Owen Ellington. And can I invite him now to the podium for his remarks?
Thank you very much, Assistant Commissioner Rose, Honorable Minister, Mrs. Patterson, senior officers of the police force, Reverend, who said prayers for us earlier on, our friends from the media, and my fellow colleagues who are here representing the divisions and formations which would collect these vehicles here today. Good morning to you. It is indeed a pleasure of mine to be here at this occasion where the Honorable Minister of National Security will formally hand over to the Jamaica Constabulary Force a batch of service vehicles. I think it's about 39 pickups to be deployed across Jamaica. ACP Rose has indicated that these vehicles will be distributed to most of the operational formations across the force. And this is indeed the case because we recognize that the criminals that we are up against have become far more mobile. They have the resources to acquire mobile assets to move themselves all around the country where they create crime and insecurity. And in order for the police to be ahead of them, if not on top of them, we need to continue to build out on force mobility, which is such a crucial capability for us in Jamaica today. I would like to, as ACP Rose indicated earlier on, just tell the Honourable Minister and the rest of Jamaica what we intend to do with these vehicles. We have plans to build out the patrol system in many of the territorial divisions, and there are some new routes, overland routes, that we have actually assessed as being very important ones used by criminals who travel across the country, that we intend to implement new patrol systems on them with these newly acquired assets. There are some police stations that have no vehicles, and we intend to ensure that with this allocation and the additional vehicles that we expect in December, that we should have every police station with a very new, fairly new, functional police vehicle as at later on this year. There are some formations that already have vehicles, and we intend to add some of these to them. For example, the territorial divisions in the corporate area that have to build out their patrol formations to cope with the growing challenge of mobile criminals. They too will be allocated additional vehicles. I must say that I am very concerned, Minister, and I have expressed it over and over about the way in which some of our members treat with the service vehicles which are allocated. I use every opportunity presented to me to remind them of the huge cost incurred by taxpayers whenever a batch of vehicle is allocated to the police force. I think this batch represents the first tranche of well over $300 million worth of investment by the government and taxpayers of this country. to keep us mobile. There are some police stations where the value, the cost of the police vehicle exceeds the value of the physical station to which it's attached. But when you consider the force multiplier effect of a functional vehicle at a police station, it way exceeds what the station itself as a physical plant can deliver to the community. And I want the members to understand that without the ability to move around in the community efficiently and to respond to public calls for help, to patrol, to observe, to detect crimes, and to reassure the citizens, a police station in the district is basically useless. So you need mobility. And when we invest in the kind of vehicles that we are providing to you to do your work out there, it is incumbent on you to care the vehicles, to use them for the purpose for which they are intended, and to ensure that no unauthorized business is conducted with these vehicles. In this regard, I have asked Assistant Commissioner Nelson from the Administration Branch not only to republish the instructions for safe operations of these types of vehicles in this week's force orders, but we are also ensuring that each policeman, each police driver who is here today to collect a vehicle on behalf of his division is personally issued a copy of those safe driving instructions. I am always prepared to hold persons individually accountable for the way in which they use and treat force assets. The issue of breathalyzing our members when they are involved in certain matters has come up recently. I'd like to use this occasion to publicly state that after every accident involving police vehicle, we require, as part of the investigations, that the officers be breathalyzed. I am very, very serious about it, and if it means we have to go a step further and conduct drug tests, we will do it, because we have to ensure that in the handling of these vehicles, not only do drivers consider their own safety, but the safety of passengers who may be colleagues and the safety of other users of the roads. So as we accept these vehicles today, Honourable Minister, let me say thanks to you personally and to the ministry that you lead. Let me say thanks to the government for allocating the funds to purchase these vehicles. It's very interesting that these funds were made available in April of this year, but we are just today collecting the first batch of vehicle. Government money is indeed very hard to spend, and I hope we can find an easier way to spend additional funds as they come our way, because we really need the vehicles in the fleet. Let me say thanks to Assistant Commissioner Rose, Mrs. Patterson, the staff of the Transport and Repairs Division, and all who had anything to do with the acquisition of these vehicles and getting them here today. And let me thank in advance the commanding officers, men and women, of the various formations that will get these vehicles for the safe, careful use, handling of these motor vehicles so that they can last for a long time and they can enable you to provide the quality of service that our publics so desperately deserve of us. Thanks again, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great day.
But ladies and gentlemen, the whole issue of vehicles and vehicle procurement and force mobility was one that was impressed upon me very early in my tenure as minister by the Commissioner of Police. And last year we did a number of measures which I think increased the efficiency or assisted in increasing the efficiency of the Transport and Repairs Division, and whose productivity increased sharply after those interventions. We have also invested significantly in mobility. Last year we supplied more vehicles to the security forces, and in this sense I include the JDF as well as the correctional services. We supplied more vehicles last year than had been supplied to them in the prior 3 years combined. This year we're continuing that because we want to make this a constant, so that over time the average age of the police fleet, which when I became minister was just about 10 years. In fact, I think half of the vehicles were over 10 years. And that suggests to you that it's a vehicle well past its economic useful life, because a police vehicle, unlike a domestic vehicle, is literally on the road 3 shifts a day, or at least 2 shifts a day. And therefore, a 10-year-old vehicle in a police service would be equate to something like a 25 or 30-year-old vehicle for domestic purposes. A little over a month ago, I made a statement to the House of Representatives that we had placed orders for 70 motor cars, 6 mid-sized SUVs, 44 pickups, and 13 600cc motorbikes, as well as 2 15-seater buses. I indicated then that delivery would start within a month and it should be complete by the end of the year. And so this first handover represents the first tranche of those vehicles, in particular the pickups, the double cab 4x4 pickups. And one of the things I also want to point out is that you may have noticed between last year and this year, the motorbikes that we are acquiring for the police are much more substantial motorbikes, 600cc bikes, engines, and with a proper police kit, lights and sirens. And while this is in a sense less effective in terms of the numbers of units that we can afford, but I think the tragic loss of Constable Davis a few weeks ago in Trelawney points to the fact that from the perspective of officer safety, it doesn't make sense to compromise in buying these little 200cc motorbikes that don't carry sirens and lights, and then expect an officer to carry out the same duties with that as a proper outfitted police bike with a proper engine size, with sirens and lights to alert the public and the road users that the police officer may be coming at speed in pursuit of a fugitive, or in terms of piloting other vehicles through the traffic. So this is an important investment. It probably means that we will acquire the numbers over time rather than more quickly. But I think both from an effectiveness in operation point of view, from an officer safety perspective, it is an investment that is well worth it. Our efforts to equip the police force isn't limited, however, to force mobility and vehicles. The cabinet just approved an upgrade of the automated palm and fingerprint identification system, which will see us spending again substantial amounts of money, between $2 and $3 million upgrading the capability of that system, and hopefully as a result improving the detection rate of criminals from forensic evidence, and also improving the conviction rate, as we will have to rely less on witness evidence and more on forensic evidence collected and crime scene evidence. Last year, the police were able to report a sharp increase in the recovery of firearms, and that has continued in the current year. This applies to narcotics as well. And we see an excellent effort in terms of the activities of the police, in terms of the number of vehicle checkpoints, in terms of the numbers of raids, from all perspectives, from human trafficking perspective, right across to interrupting narcotics trafficking gang activity. Nonetheless, you are aware that the last 3 months we have seen a spike in murders, and it shows that we can't become complacent. We have to redouble our efforts. As important as vehicles, equipment, and personnel, because we've also seen a substantial increase in the numbers of police personnel over the last 5 years or so. We've seen about a 25% increase in the aggregate numbers between JCF, ISCF, and district constables. However, equipment, vehicles, personnel, while all necessary, are not sufficient. It also requires committed police officers who are willing to put themselves in harm's way to protect the lives and property of our citizens. And it also requires a supportive society, because after just short of 2 years now as minister, I am convinced that the police efforts by themselves will never reduce crime to where we need it to go until we have a supportive set of institutions within government right across the chain of law enforcement, and we have supportive communities and a supportive media and a supportive private sector and a supportive NGO community to include faith-based groups. When we get all of that, when we get all of those interest groups engaged, then I think we will really start to see some significant progress in reducing the levels of crime and violence and increasing citizens' perception of their safety and security.